When I look at our history, I realize that our history is not negotiable. It's not defined by slavery. It is a profound history, and we need to teach it in honesty. Hello. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Erudition Network. My name is Eddie Phillips. This is our interactive Black History and Knowledge session. I want to thank you all, everyone who may come in. We're a little bit, I started this at a little later than I wanted to tonight, but I wanted to make sure that I got on tonight to do this episode because I wasn't on last week. I had a lot of things going on, and I wanted to make the time this week to make sure that I was here to do this show this week. If you are here, I welcome you. You are family. You have been here with us, and you have watched our episodes and are helping us to grow this channel. And I want to thank you. If you are new here, I want to welcome you also, and thank you for joining us. Rather, you're watching the recording of it, and I want to encourage you to comment and leave your comments. And I promise you, your remarks that you leave on YouTube, Facebook, whatever, we will definitely respond to. As I said, this is the Erudition Network, Black History Interactive. I do this program because we want to make sure that we provide facts on Black history. This is where a lot of facts are revealed, a lot of places where we try to restore the trust in our history, in our Black history. I am your host, Eddie K. Phillips. I am a public historian and a father and husband and the founder of the Erudition Network. And I've been on this journey for quite some time, trying to teach history in a factual way that allows people to go and do research as we do this program and after we do this program. Today, we're going to cover something that I think is also overdue. I had like 3 different ideas of what I wanted to do with this program this week. So many things are going on in the media and everything, but then I came across something yesterday that kind of pushed me where I guess I needed to be. Today, we're going to have a conversation that I do believe is long overdue, needs some facts to it, so that we could debunk folklore, myth, lies. We really need to understand Black men. We have been told that the Black man is absent. We have been told that the Black man is dangerous. We have been told that the Black man is broken. We have been told that the Black man is illogical. He is a thug. He's a criminal. He's a deadbeat. And on and on and on and on and on. We are being continually told, even in our media, in our movies. But tonight I want to cover that is based on lies. Too many of us are following these lies to the grave. And we need to talk about it. Because see, when a lie, when it is repeated enough, it starts to shape the world around it. It starts to shape how politicians look at us, how people look at us, policy, public opinion, psychology. and deeper, how we see ourselves, as people in society. So today, I want to kind of go into some of that history, and I want to give facts to that and start to uncover that. We're going to talk about facts. We're going to tell the truth. And we're going to talk about good men, good Black men who are protectors, fathers, tribal leaders, warriors, people who put their lives on the line for not only their families, but others' families. And we're going to be factual about it because I think that we don't do it in our textbooks. We omit this. We don't break down the government policies. We don't break down how we have been erased or our image has been repurposed. And so I think it's important that we unpack these narratives, these statistics, because the problem has never been that the Black man is any of those things that I listed: absent, dangerous, broken, evil. It's how people have forced the perception on others and even aligned and allowed the Black man to now make his own opinion about himself. So tonight, whether you're a father, a young Black man, a teacher, an uncle, a mentor, a pastor, or someone who is just involved with Black children, people, and families as a leader, I think it's important that you understand this history. And I think you should pull up a seat, sit down, and let's get to this episode and start breaking this thing down. So here's the thing. A lot of us have been raised in environments where we have been told, and there is some truth to some fathers not being there. But here's the thing. That absent Black father myth was pushed upon us, right? It was pushed upon us by policies. It was pushed upon us during slavery, when the father was basically used as a means to impregnate a woman and then be gone. And what it did is it forced the Black man to no longer feel like a protector, to no longer feel like a part of a family structure. And then as we come forward to now, we're living through the history of that. And the absent Black father is one of the most pervasive and damaging stereotypes in the world. In the world, not just America. Because we keep hearing it, we keep seeing it, we keep having it in our media, in our movies, in our television shows. We are told that Black men don't stick around for their kids, that Black families are fatherless by default, that is the normal structure. And the lie has been said so often that many of us, Black people, we take it as the truth. We take it as an expectation of the of the baby daddy, of the guy or gal who won't commit. We take that as something that has to happen. And so when we ask about where the current myth comes from, let's go look at a man named David Patrick Moynihan. There are a lot of so-called historians and people out here who get online and they talk to you about things that they see in their regurgitation. But I'm going to tell you, there is a federal report came out in 1965 by Moynihan, by Daniel Patrick Moynihan, who infamously described the Black family as broken. Talking about the welfare and how to structure policy around that. And telling American people that they're absent. And this set a narrative that's stuck in American policy. But if you looked at the real data, if you really, really went and did the studies and looked at what was going on, the picture was different. Study after study showed that Black fathers were highly involved in their children's lives during that time. And in fact, some of them were so involved that they took them to school. Some of them were so involved that they were the ones who were more taking care of their children, sometimes more than the wife, because she may have worked a job in the South as a maid or as a caregiver for other people's kids. And the other thing is, when compared to other races, or what they conceive to be a race, but comparatively to white families, the Black father was more involved. So the purpose of that report was to make people see Black men as something other, as that brute beast sexual predator that has been pushed through the American narrative since even before the time of American slavery. In Spain, and how they viewed the Moors, who were religious people. This idea of hypersexualized Black man, non-trustworthy Black man. But if we were to come back to right now and talk numbers, major studies have shown you Black dads are the most likely of any racial group to engage in daily child care, such as taking their kids to school, bathing, dressing, reading. It's not from me. These are from CDC reports. These are from studies throughout the entire, over years and decades. So think about that. Despite the fact that they told us that Black men were disengaged, that Black men did not want to be involved, they were bathing, feeding, taking care of their toddlers every day at a higher rate than white fathers or even Hispanic fathers. And even for fathers not living in the same home, because of welfare systems that told Black women that the father couldn't be in a home, Black dads still stayed connected. About 67%, right, from a Washington study, 67% of Black fathers who live apart from their kids still see them at least once or twice a month. If you compare that to white dads, who they have pushed and said and made it to be 69%, not because they were going more, but because there are more of them. Hispanic dads, 32%. So why is the Black father, even on television right now, you're being told, oh, well, that's the problem. That's why people are so violent. Father involvement, father residency, father engagement is not there in the Black community. So what are we saying? That a proud Black father spending time with his children, that's not norm. That's not the norm. So we create a contrary absent father myth, even though studies from sources who were not even trying to support Black Americans had to come to the conclusion, wow, They are involved. So at the heart of this situation, we have to call it a myth, folklore, a lie. We have to say that it doesn't really exist, because the fact of the matter is it's not supported. It's not supported. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are joining us tonight, please, please, please jump into chat. This is an interactive program, not just me talking at you. So I want your input. I want your interaction. Please do that so that we can have a conversation. I know we don't have that many people in tonight right now. And so if you are watching this as a recording, I want your feedback. I want to hear from you. I want your thoughts on this. Rather your opinion is different than mine, or you feel that you have contrary facts to what I'm saying, please feel free to jump in and do that, because I want you to interact and to join in this conversation. This is an important conversation. It disturbs me that these myths exist. And here we are in 2025, and we're still pushing these myths that have been with us for hundreds of years. And even if we consider, because I know there are going to be detractors who say, well, Black children live in single parent homes a lot. And if we compare that to other groups, right, that's a lot of children who don't have parents who are together. And then I would say that's nonsense too, as you look at the divorce rates within the United States over the last 50 years that have increased. But we're not talking about white fathers not being there for their kids. We're not talking about that. Right? What we're talking about is black men, particularly Black people. And it's a double-edged sword here, because we say that the Black father is not there, but what does that say about the Black mother? That she's accepting of this behavior? That she's okay with that? So it degrades her at the same time also. And it pretends that, these things are normal, irreversible, they have to happen. And that's the rub. That's the rub. See, a single parent doesn't automatically mean that there is an absent father or an absent mother. That just means that for whatever reason, those two individuals could not stay together. And in a white family, that's acceptable. That's okay. As a matter of fact, sometimes we say, well, the family is larger because the mother and the father, they go and marry someone else, and now they have a larger family, even though they're not together, even though they're not around each other. It's okay. But we don't say that for the Black father, the Black family. We automatically state, okay, it's a baby's mama, it's this and that, right? And that this has to be what it is. We automatically do that. And unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, that's foolery. It does not mean that the father is absent. Many of those kids have present parents, not just the father. In fact, the absent black dads are often, like I said, the most involved of the so-called absent fathers. So I wanted to make that point. I don't want to beat it to death, but I want you to go back and I want you to look at these studies. And I'm going to put some of them in our remarks on all of our channels so that you all understand. So that you all understand. It's upsetting. It's upsetting. So the absent myth is an effective tool. It is just one of the things that I want to talk about tonight. It's an effective tool. See, if you convince the world that the black man isn't there for his family, you justify every lie, every policy, everything that you do to punish him. You make him a despicable character, and you ignore his worth to society. And this is something that plays into, because it's a cultural erasure. It's a way to erase his value. And it is affecting us. If you consider that the media runs sound bites, rather it be television, rather it be even in movies, where they talk about and they showcase black men being despicable, irreparable. And they highlight us as thugs, criminals, and even if it's a good father, they emphasize his thuggery, his desire to do whatever he has to do for his family, even if it takes him away from his family, going to jail. He's a criminal even when he tries to be a good father. And they ignore the stay at home, helping to educate, grow this new generation. It's disturbing. Now, let's be clear. None of this is to say that black people black men are perfect. Nobody's saying that. But it does go to not ignore the black men who do show up every day, who are providing, who are doing, who are changing lives, changing diapers, going to parent-teacher conferences, supporting their kids in sports, working jobs, sitting up with them and helping them to reading bedtime stories with them, and doing these things that they're made to look invisible for. But we're still stuck in the policy, propaganda, and power that has manipulated us for, as I said, centuries. Any thoughts for the people who are on right now? Any thoughts on this? Oh, Tony, I didn't even see it. Good to see you, Tony. Thank you for joining us. Cultural norms versus systemic norms. If they could erase the black man from the home, they'll erase the black man from the workforce. Dizel, I heard, was great. It fits us, but the perpetuation of us and how we're represented is challenged. So here's the thing. Even when we do, even in our writing, as a screenwriter, I will tell you, when I went to school, I was amazed at how many black men and women would write black stereotypes who were black and knew better. And then as I sat there and I reflected upon it, I realized something. In the basically just a little bit over 100 years of film, right? We have stereotypes that have been put in film since the very beginning. Edison's movies in the beginning showed black men eating watermelon, even though some of them weren't black. They were white men in blackface. It showed pickaninnies. It showed all of these stereotypes. It showed the brutes. And so by the time we got to Birth of a Nation and D.W. Griffith, we started to see again how they created this narrative of how black men are. And they made the Klan figure in the movie to be the heroic person that saves society from the beast, from the infidel. And then I realized that in that 100 years of film, in order to get along and keep along, in order to write a script that you felt could be sold, black people would write themselves in those stereotypes and perpetuate that same thing. And so I hear you. Tony, because it is sick. It is sick. I want to go back. I want to go back before Jim Crow, the Civil Rights era. I want to go back historically. And I want to go back to colonial times in America. I mentioned it a few moments ago, but I want to go back there because the enslaved Africans were not allowed basic human rights. Let me say that again for those who didn't hear me, because there are going to be people who detract and come on our YouTube page as they always do. They were denied basic human rights. They were not allowed, because of that, to keep their families intact. Right? They were not allowed to act as if they were human. Black men, women, and children were bought and sold. We know that. Husbands and wives were separated on a whim. If the slave owner or the master decided that he wanted them to be separated and their kids sold, that's what was going to happen. And so you're denied basic human rights. And this was not an incidental thing. This was done by design. Slavery profited from the destruction of the black family. Let's say that again. Slavery profited from the destruction of the black family. A strong father in the home, or a strong father as a protector, is not what the slave owner wanted. That was a threat to the very idea of slavery. So the system worked to break the father first, to break young men at a young age, break the idea of a bond whenever it could. There was a reason why the slave owner would beat the mother of a black young man to show his power and control. Frederick Douglass talks about his family being beaten and how it stuck with him because it taught them you don't have control to protect. You're not a protector. The historian Lieberheld documents that enslaved black fathers were far from absent. They were always there, but they were not allowed to emotionally invest in their children or their family. Because if the master ever saw that, he saw a connection. And that is not something that he could allow. And the words that my son often says is a Shaka Zulu, enemies come back. So if they come back, I can't create my enemy. So enslaved men were told they would be punished or even killed if they cared for or protected their families. Think about that. Tony, I wonder how slave breeding also disrupted the black family. It disrupted it in many ways because the father and the father had no real legal tie to the mother. So if the master wanted to come in and allow his son, his cousin, his benefactor or whatever to not only sleep with the mother, but the daughter, and I've talked about this before too, this black man could do nothing without the possibility, of death and the loss of everything. They risked that punishment and they were stripped of their ability to protect. So this is crucial. This is crucial. Even when the law said a black man had no recognized rights as a husband or a father, many of them still fulfilled roles and tried to be there for their families, even though they had to hide it. Even though they couldn't be open about it. And they had to harden their hearts in many ways because their child could be taken at any moment by death or being sold. So it was never that they weren't present. It's that they were denied. And the slave master's lie, a lie to rationalize breaking up black families, is still controlling a lot of our minds today. To show you how committed black people were, after emancipation, after the Civil War, as soon as slavery ended, black people, men and women, went to go find their families. They walked on roads. Some going from Mississippi to Georgia to Alabama, whatever, to where they last heard that their families went. And then laws were put out, vagrancy laws, loitering laws that are still in the books today, still locking people up, both white and black now. You're not allowed to be homeless out there on the road. Where did those laws originate? They originated from the vagrancy laws that put a lot of black men into jail systems that led to the convict lease systems and a way around the Constitution so that they could be put in jail and then still used for slavery. The backlash of hate after the Civil War was predominantly aimed at the black man. As he tried to take over the head of his household, he was being denied that. After Reconstruction, black families, they struggled. And they tried. They tried to reunite. They tried to come together in communities and black towns and churches. But white supremacist society said no because they were afraid of that unity. So immediately before Jim Crow, they passed what we now know as black codes. Laws that criminalize what I just said, everyday behavior for black people. You couldn't be out during a certain time. You couldn't be a vagrant. If you basically were doing something that a white person did not approve of, if you were walking on the wrong side of the road, there's a reason why during black codes and Jim Crow, black men would move off the sidewalk, would move off the sidewalk if a white man walked past, because you could be jailed just for walking on the side on the street, passing a white man. There were laws put into place to do this. If you didn't have proof of employment, your papers, that you worked as a sharecropper, that you worked at this place, you could be jailed. It was a way to get around the Constitution and to re-slave black men in all but name. It's the reason why Ulysses S. Grant had to send federal troops down to protect black people, predominantly black men. If a black man was jailed during those times right after the Civil War for one of those minor offenses of vagrancy, just getting on somebody's nerve, he could be leased out to a plantation, to a mine, to go work on the roads, go do that convict lease. And thousands of black men were forced back into labor and away from their families that way. Look at the movie Life with Eddie Murphy and Martin Lawrence, and they talk about the white sheriff set them up. And when years later he says, what is it? The state of Georgia got good labor from you. Black men were forced into labor that way. Listen to the old song, that's the sound of the men working on the chain gang. All day long, they going, ooh. See, so we have to look at what was being done. It's hard to say that you are a protective father. It's hard to say that you are a protective father and a present father when the law is quite literally snatching you off the street for petty infractions and working you to death on a chain gang, mine, plantation, or whatever. Do that sound like something that's going on in our society right now? That they chose the law, turned the law to grab you off the street because you didn't have your papers. By the end of the 1800s, the prisons in the South filled up. It was the first time in recognized American history, go back and look it up, that blacks outnumbered whites in jail. Why was that? Because during slavery, black men had a value. Even though it was a financial value, they were insured. Their semen was insured. For every black man that I could use, big buck, I could get him to impregnate 24, 30-something women, right? And he could go out just like you would do with a dog. And some bucks were of higher standard, just like some women were of higher standard. And I've talked to you guys in episodes before about the breeding of black women. Your body is not yours. And the black man of the late 1800s, early 1900s was definitely aware that even when they said he was free, his body, his mind, everything wasn't his. Because he was always challenged by those around him and the society that he was in. And at any time, he could be gone. And what's the effect? Black families were again robbed of their fathers, uncles, brothers, of their protectors, of their role models. And this was a systemic design. That's before Jim Crow. It's just black codes coming out of Civil War and Reconstruction. During Jim Crow, they had another thing that started to happen. As black towns and black men and black people started to try to do better for themselves, lynch mobs targeted black men. For every lynching in the country every day, if there were 4 lynchings, 3 out of those were black men. And frequently, very often, the accusations were false. It was to strip them of their land, their wealth, their family. And they were told, it was always a way to incite people by saying they assaulted a white woman or they took advantage of a white woman. And this was a way to go into the myth of the brutal, bestial black man, where you enforce the image of a black man as a dangerous predator, as somebody who couldn't be free. Shufelt wrote a book, the racist man named Shufelt wrote a book called Menace to Society. And then we later, 100 years later, was made into a movie with the same title. We use that same title. Books like Cannibals All, The Negro, A Beast or an Image of God, and on and on and on. We talked and we created this lie, this dangerous predator who would leave his black woman and go out and attack a white woman. Despite the fact that slavery showed us and post-slavery showed us that white men had a predilection for going in, and this angered the white women. We have documented books and notes of how they didn't understand how the white slave master could leave out of the house with his perfumed, pretty white alabaster wife and go out in the field to go get, as one white woman said, a dirty harlot. This was their idea. But they switched the narrative. And as I told you earlier, by the time that movie Birth of a Nation came out, that drove that stereotype home to more people than ever before. Even immigrants who were coming into the country saw that movie and was like, oh, we have to be protective of this black man. We have to watch out for him in our communities. Because, you see, if that's what they know he is, and they know. So the Irish, the Scottish, the Italian, even though they lived in the vicinity of us, they started to look at us differently too. This is the way myth and lies work. It shapes the narrative in the society. So the laws that were put into place, I have to tell people, do you know why Jim Crow was the law of the land in the South, but also it was a social construct that also permeated places in the North? You know why the idea that you're not equal to me was allowed? Because it was often overlaid with fear, portraying that black man as something that he was not. And the lie was so permeated in society that many black people, they started to believe it. They started to believe in the thuggery, and the only way to survive is to be uncivilized, to be unfit, to be in survival mode all the time. So we saw black codes. Jim Crow introduced us to lynching. And then let's talk about where we are right now. We created what was called public assistance and welfare laws in the mid-20th century. And it was done, no matter what they tell you, to undermine black family unity. The man of the house rule that was put into place in the 1960s said that under certain welfare programs, if a family, a mother and their children, that's who they could deem to be a family, was receiving aid, any adult male found living in a household would disqualify that family from benefits. That was the rule. The man in the house rule. Look it up. The movie Claudine kind of showed you how people had to basically lie, falsify. Christian people feeling that the only way I could survive with my family is to pretend I'm not with the father. If the mother wanted to feed her kids and keep a roof over her head, she had to tell the AFDC, the Aid to Families and Dependent Children, she had to tell them that she didn't have any man in her life. And she had to ban that father from seeing his children and even being in their home. And he couldn't provide anything for his kids, because if he bought shoes, if he bought socks, the welfare worker would literally conduct a surprise home inspection and show up and say, where you get them socks from? Well, you're not going to get aid. And they wouldn't care about evicting the family or putting kids as wards of the state. Just if they found something small, the support could get cut. Because, see, when you have reports like the Moynihan report and you have people lying about things and then not wanting this unity, they knew what they were doing. And the policy stemmed from racist assumptions and fear so that the black man could not be a provider. And it also told what? It told a whole generation of children that they were only deserving as long as the father was absent. The only way that you could be considered a viable family is that you needed to have a mother and not the father. The father had to basically get out of there on inspection days, or he couldn't marry the mother. And let's remember, they were still being denied jobs, equal opportunity under the law in the 60s. So you not only, if the father even had a job, it would be something hard for him to even try to help with his family. So you were attacking the black family from two sides. And it entrenched this myth that we don't have black fathers as protectors, mentors, guides. And then they flipped the script. By the time I was born, whereas you look at the 70s and the 80s, you have now another thing they put in there: the war on drugs. The war on drugs, the tough on crime. We are a nation of laws and law enforcement. Reagan calling people welfare queens because you, for decades, told these women they couldn't have fathers in the home, then you insult them by calling them welfare queens because they have children that and they don't have a father. And then you put out to the society and say the reason that we have criminality in the Black community is because there's no fathers. But we push those fathers out of the home. Then we do this thing called the war on drugs. One of Richard Nixon's domestic policy chiefs, right, John Eichmann, later said, make no mistake about it, the war on drugs was the war on the Black community and a war on a Black man in particular. He's one of the people who helped to create the policy. He said that Nixon initially designed the war on drugs to target Black people because he saw them getting too strong and being supported by the hippie crowd that was against the war. And he had to quiet them. So then he sent a whole new slew of Black men. And this is a two-part system here. It's a two-part system here. They sent Black men. I see you guys going to comment on them in a moment. They sent Black men to the war of Vietnam. When you look at the beginning of the war, Black people and minorities were the ones being sent the most. And there was an investigation done into it. And then they had to start sending people's kids, white people's kids. Oh, wait a minute. We don't want to lose our kids. But before that, they were giving Black people a choice. Go to jail for a minor drug offense of weed or whatever, or join the military. Go to the war. Dustin, I don't believe the system calls fathers to lead home or lie to receive benefits, just bad people. Yeah, they are. We're bad people. Fraudulent systems actually intended to oppose or be noisy to perpetuate oppression while simultaneously smiling in the face of victims, telling them they should be grateful and find a way to maintain. Same thing being exposed as white person's problems in this current administration. There are definitely tendrils that connect where we are right now to where we were back then, and things have not changed. At the heart of it, what really should concern Americans is that at the highest level of government, at the office of the president, right? At the highest levels of government, people explicitly plotted and planned to vilify a section of society and to justify locking them up, sending them off to war with the possibility of dying. And at the heart of it, as the civil rights movement was gaining traction, it was also gave them the ability to arrest their leaders, to break up the meetings. You will notice that around after 1968, that there was a whole shift in the civil rights movement where we started to get the Black Panther Party and different things, and Black men were more militant because they stopped seeing it as a passive war, and it was an aggressive war. They were being arrested and imprisoned for very small things that could happen. And again, still being arrested for sometimes just being at the wrong place, at the wrong time, on the wrong street, at the wrong hour. And every man that was taken out of this community and put in prison or put out to war was somebody's father, brother, son, taken from that family. And I want you to also remember what the man in the house rule in the 60s said. It said any adult male, not just the father. Could have been an uncle. It could have been your adult son. you don't get the ability to apply for aid to families with dependent children. And it wasn't because the black man didn't care, but it was because he was being targeted and removed. Hippies were actively sitting, and if you don't believe that, they were actively sitting at concert venues outside of colleges. They were sitting there smoking weed and doing all that and not getting arrested. The raids were going on in the inner city. That's 70s and 80s. We start to see them disrupt and go on this war on drugs. And then the crack epidemic, right? The super predator. And don't come at me with the Democratic or the Republican, because let me tell you something. People who, on both sides, decided it was okay to lock up these black men. And if you don't know what a super predator was, they made it very clear to you. It's a young black male. He was a criminal. And when you see movies like New Jack City and all of the stuff that was in the media, they showed you the idea of a super predator. And then here's the thing. Even with black exploitation, whether you look at Superfly and all of this stuff that came out during the 70s, late 70s, early 80s, all of those movies glorified the criminal, the pimp, the thug. These were attacks, these were lies and myths. Melvin Van Peebles started, arguably, the black exploitation era. And he talked about it before he died. He said, I made a movie called Sweet Sweetback's Bad A Song. Right? But he told you, he said, Sweetback wasn't a criminal. He was just a black man that was not going to take none of your flack. Shaft wasn't a criminal. If you watch the old movie, because these movies were made, 3 black directors were given $1 million contracts to make movies. One made, right after Melvin Van Peebles made Sweet Sweetback, he made The Watermelon Man. Good movie. Hardly remembered. Ozzie Davis made Cotton Comes to Harlem, which was a black crime story about money being hidden in a cotton bundle and showing the different factions and business people of Harlem at the time. Ozzie wanted to show everybody wasn't no criminal. Gordon Parks made Shaft, a detective who wouldn't go along with the man and wouldn't go along with the thug. But after that, we started to make movies that glorified criminality, sexuality. Though we laugh at Dolomite, though we laugh at some of these black exploitation movies, let's understand what they did. The message that was sent. And as we come into the 80s, yes, Tony, talking about Menace to Society, New Jack City, Boys in the Hood. Tina, the system is always challenging itself to design laws which only apply to black people, but it always drags white people to become victimized as well. They just need to be fair across the board. Here's the thing. They're not fair across the board, and they haven't been for decades, even centuries. And if you ain't got no stake in the game, that's why I laugh. People say, well, how could the Clintons and Biden and all these different people, how could it? Because at the end of the day, it ain't people that look like them that's being hunted in the street. It's not them. So unless you start to have more of an interracial family, that's why I love where we are to a greater extent in America right now. My grandma just passed. My last grandmother. My grandma Donna never ever treated me different. Right? Her family. Nobody ever treated me different. We love each other because we're family. And as we come to an understanding in America that that's really what it is, this racial thing don't have to exist. We need to be aware of these facts, but it don't have to exist. People are making a choice and putting that choice on other people. We say, we look at Eddie Murphy made a movie, Boomerang. Eddie Murphy said he had such a pushback for that movie because people were like, well, you don't have any white people in this movie. This is all black professionals, because there are black professionals. Say whatever you want to say about Bill Cosby, but the Cosby Show showed two black professionals raising a family. The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air showed a professional family. Show families smiling together, being together, fathers interacting with the household, fathers who are mentoring, growing their children. Outside of the myth of black on black crime, absentee fatherism, all of that not present. And what did it do? The Cosby Show inspired a lot of young black people to go to college, particularly females. Watching shows, even the Jeffersons. I was watching an episode of the Jeffersons. If you ever watch those episodes where George Jefferson is talking to his son and he tells him he wants what's better for him and he's doing everything he can to make a better life for his family, to leave a legacy. Even when we had funny, extreme stuff like even Sanford and Son, there was never a doubt that Fred Sanford he loved his son. The dialogue was extreme and it was probably hyperbolic, right? Of how we talk in black culture, black society, but there was always a sense we could laugh at it because at the heart of it, we knew that there was some love there. Why? Because people kept coming back. The characters kept interacting with each other. There's no way I'm going to get through all of this tonight. So I'm going to have to go back into this next week. But this idea of the black male, I was telling my wife, NDRE has a song called Good Man. And every time I hear that song, I remember watching Baba Dick Gregory's funeral. It's the first time I heard the song, and she got up there, she sang that song. And I thought about some of the things I didn't get into tonight, but I'm going to get into next week. I thought about Medgar Evers. I thought about Vernon Dahmer. I thought about Dr. King. I thought about all these men, Malcolm X, who were murdered in front of their families, trying to do what was right, not only for their family, but the family of others. My wife, she has a great uncle Fred Shuttlesworth, and I remember when she was telling me the first time I found out that she was related to him, and he was on the SCLC with Dr. King, and I brought something to her attention. I said, Fred Shuttlesworth is such a iconic thing in Black civil rights history for me because Fred Shuttlesworth believed in Brown versus the Board of Education, and there is footage of Fred Shuttlesworth driving to a school and the Klan meeting him outside of his car and almost beating him to death with chains simply because he wanted his kids to attend a school. He was committed. And we talk about Black fathers as if they're not there. I love my kids for whatever they do, whatever they don't do. They're my kids. I thank God every day for the ability that he gave for me to have me and my wife to have them. And I cannot fathom a life in which someone could come up and just snatch them out of my household. We cannot repeat these things, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to close this episode by saying, yeah, I know, Dustin. It chokes me up because I miss my grandparents. I really do. It's important to have a family structure to grow in a family. Family can have different looks, different colors. It don't matter. You family. It just starts with the idea that we are all included in this family. I love as I reflect on history, ladies and gentlemen, I always place myself and say, Lord, I could not, I don't know if I could have endured that. God chooses time, I do believe. And we have a habit of saying we're not our ancestors, we're not this, and this is no longer this. Ladies and gentlemen, there are people right now who are living in fear that even if they're here legally, they're going to get pulled off the street and taken away from their families. But I was starting to go into NDRE. That I challenge you tonight, go listen to that song. Because to me, that song speaks to a father's experience. And whether you black, white, or whatever, trying to do what's right. And the ultimate sacrifice that you can make doing what's right. We're going to go further into this next week. I thank every last one of you all who joined us. I ask that you share this program. You know, Erudition has been doing so well as far as new people joining the YouTube channel and watching us on TikTok and everything else. And I just want to say I appreciate everyone who shares our program, who encourages folks to watch. I try very hard to be very factual with you all. My wife, when she talks about studies, she tries to let you know we don't want to give you fallacy. We want you to grow, and we want you to understand where we are. And if you don't think that this type of education is important, let me leave this with you. A man came up to me recently. My son had went into a meeting, and I'm gonna brag about my namesake, my oldest. He went into a meeting, and he brought his thoughts to this meeting that everybody had been used to at his job. And the guy told me, he said, your son was so eloquent in the way he spoke and the thoughts that he brought to this beyond his age. And that is his mother, me, but more importantly, that's God allowing us to understand, to impart things to our kids and understand how important it is to be out there to advocate for others, because that's what he was doing. And he told me something yesterday. He said, Dad, I don't care if they listen or not. They could never say they weren't informed. That is what we try to do here. Inform you. You can never say you weren't informed. All right. I'm going to get out of here. Hey, thank you all. Thank you all. Share. Get this program out here for people to be able to watch. I did not put up my ticker, and I'm going to catch flack if I didn't. If I don't, the Erudition Network, we're on here every week. If you want anything you want to donate to the Erudition Network, this is our Cash App at $ Erudition Network. My wife has a book out. I don't have it at my desk right now. I'll put the link into the YouTube channel and different things. You can always go online, get my book, 101 Black History Question Challenge. It's on Amazon. It's interactive. You can get the digital interactive book, and you can learn from it. Oh, let me say this. This month, the next month coming, not this month, next month, I am going to do a seminar. Tentatively right now, it'll be 2 hours. A 2-hour seminar with educators, homeschoolers, teachers. I want people to register for this so that we can discuss this book and others. And so we can start to create an understanding of how to teach Black history as world history, as history, in a way that is not being done, not only in America, but around the world. So stand by for that. You will start probably seeing advertisements for that coming up soon once I lock down the dates in which I can do that. And we're going to do that because I want a focus group. I want people to join in and talk about this book. I want you to get that book, but I also want you to understand the power behind that book. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I've said everything that I needed to say, I think. Let me get out of here. Thank you, Tony. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Tina. Thank you, Dustin. Hey, thank all of you who will probably watch the recording. You all be blessed. And until next week, God willing, I should see you all again. You all be blessed. And go look up some of the things that I talked about tonight. Until next time. Thank you. You all. See you later.